Here we go. My name is Kim Titchener, and I work at RecSafe with Wildlife and Bear Safety and more. And we also have Sarah here, Sarah Parsons from RecSafe with Wildlife, and of course, Daryl, who is going to be doing our talk. And tonight, I think there's about 300 people signed up, which is amazing. So thank you all so much for being here. And I think we have folks from all over Canada and the United States. I'm hoping some of our volunteers are here as well. Oh my goodness, we got some folks up in Alaska visiting. That's very nice. Nils is about to jump on, so that's exciting. He's an expert with curly and bear dogs, which is pretty cool. I see Brian's here, lots of folks. Okay, this is wonderful. This is a great topic. And for those of you that your friends weren't able to make it or family members, it is being recorded and we are going to put it on RecSafe's YouTube channel. For those of you that's your first time coming to one of these free talks, I think, Sarah, when we started, RecSafe started in 2021, in the spring of 2021. After a year of COVID, I couldn't take it anymore. There was too many people heading outdoors, getting into environments where bears live and other wildlife, not knowing what to do. And so I decided to start RecSafe with Wildlife to try to educate recreationists about bear and wildlife safety. We have a website. We've got tons of awesome resources, downloadable PDFs, interviews with survivors of bear attacks, interviews with wilderness first aid experts. And we are just constantly trying to get all kinds of different ways of helping you to be safer when you're out there. And of course, respect and concern of the incredible animals that live in these environments. And Daryl has actually jumped on here before and done a talk with us. And he has an organization called Wildlife for You, which I'm hoping he'll chat a little bit about, and his new book, which we're so excited about as well. And I'm going to turn it over to Daryl. And just so you all know, if you're writing you can write your questions in the chat. Sarah is going to monitor that. And then at the end, she will then curate that and have some questions that she'll ask Daryl. But Daryl, if you want to take it away and let us know a little bit more about you, that would be wonderful.
I will do that. First thing I'm going to do, I am going to share my screen. So Kim, let me know if and when you can see the slides. All right. Well, welcome everyone to today's talk. My name is Daryl Ratajczak. I'm a wildlife biologist, large carnivore specialist as well. And Kim asked me if I would be interested in doing a couple of talks for RecSafe, and it was right up my alley. I have loved bears and mountain lions and all those cool critters for a long, long time. And I've been fortunate enough to literally dedicate my life, my career to studying these animals. And so what I wanted to do, I threw out some ideas to Kim regarding a two-part talk that I do. And I called it my Predator series. And what we do is we try to teach people the differences between three families of apex predators and how they secure their prey, because so many people are always wondering, like, if livestock get killed or an animal goes missing, they want to know what kind of predator may have been the culprit. And so scientists are able to look at the visual signs and make those determinations what kind of animal was responsible for that. And so this first part one of this Predator series is called the Takedown. And without further ado, I'm going to jump into this presentation. And when I do that, the first thing I always do with my presentations is I got to tell you a little bit about myself and a little bit about my background, so you know I'm just not blowing smoke and Googling stuff as I go, because I personally hate Google because, well, it has a lot of good information, but it has an equal amount of horrible information. So I do want you to know that all the information you're going to get tonight is going to be science-based. It's based on experiences, careers of working with these animals, as well as the latest science. And so I've been able to dedicate my life to being a wildlife biologist. And so I received my degree in wildlife management a long time ago, early 90s. And I had the pleasure of, after getting my degree, I started working with black bears just outside of Great Smoky Mountain National Park. And that's where my love for bears grew. And then I graduated up through the ranks. I started working for the state of Tennessee. I was their big game program coordinator. So I was managing not just bears, but deer and elk. Moved up to chief of wildlife for the state of Tennessee. Then as a little boy, the heartstrings were tugging at me to fulfill a dream of living and working out west in the Rockies. And so about 7 years ago, I left the state of Tennessee and I've been in the West ever since. So the animals I work with have changed, but they're a lot of those big game animals with bears and grizzlies and mountain lions and moose and you name it. So I've been blessed to live the dream, so to speak. But what I do want to tell you is for this particular talk, I also had a lot of help from a colleague of mine. Her name's Stephanie Payne, and she has worked closely with state and federal and provincial biologists in this realm of coordinating these wildlife human attack response classes. And so they bring in the heavy hitters that evaluate the forensics and all that regarding unfortunately some human fatalities, but also the characteristics of how these predators go after their prey. So she helped put this two-part series together, so I wanted to make sure I gave her credit. So with that, I'm going to jump into today's talk, and we're going to talk a lot about predators and predator attacks. And so my first question is, why even study predator attacks? Now, you could be like me. I took this picture actually in New Mexico where we were studying some cougar kill sites. And so if you're like me and you're just curious about wildlife and you want to learn as much as you can, that's fantastic. But the majority of people probably on this call aren't wildlife biologists. And so there's a few other reasons why people might want to know about predator attacks. And so first and foremost, if you are some type of farmer or anything, you might have livestock that you're concerned about, whether or not it is cattle or goats or sheep or pigs or you name it. If you're raising livestock, anything that might take that livestock is really going to be a concern to you. The other big one though, and I prematurely hit my slide, was the fact that a lot of folks have pets. And so cats and dogs occasionally go missing, and sometimes it's the result of a predator. And so it would be really interesting to know what exactly happened to whether or not it is your pet or your livestock. And so there are people there that are trained to figure out what is going on. So the one thing I want you to do as we talk about predator attacks and some of these apex predators that are found in North America, I want you to remember, folks, there's no such thing as good or bad animals. And I will tell you without a doubt, the vast majority of the public out there, they look at pictures and they'll see two different kinds of pictures and they automatically classify like the prey as being the good animal and the predator as being the bad animal. And it's not like that. It's just simply Mother Nature. And you have to understand, predation has been occurring for over 400 million years. There's fossil evidence of one animal eating another animal in the fossil record dating back 400 million years. As if that wasn't reason enough, I will tell you, when we're talking about good animals or bad animals, you look at this bird, and I wish I could talk to you in person and quiz you, but if anyone knows what this bird is, it's a beautiful songbird. It's called a shrike, a northern shrike. And if you see this bird, you're going to say, oh my gosh, that's gorgeous. That's such a pretty animal. That bird there is one of the craziest, coolest predators out there. Its nickname is the impaler because when they secure their prey items, they're known to impale it on a bush to come back later and eat from it. So whether or not you're walking and you see a mouse or some type of insect impaled on a thorn bush, that could very well be the culprit of this little songbird. And so try to understand that predators are just a group of animals that are out there trying to survive. The other thing I love, though, I love animals, and I will even admit that even the predators, when they're tiny, are gosh darn cute. So they're simply being the animals that they evolved to be. So don't think of any of these animals as doing anything bad. That's simply a human construct. So as we talk about it, what we're going to do, we're going to focus on 3 families of predators. And so the 3 that we're going to look at the canids. Then there's another group called the ursids. And then the third group is the felids. And we know these 3 groups better as the dogs, the bears, and the cats. And they're all pretty much classified as apex predators. They're kind of like, when we say apex predator, we're more or less talking about the top of the food chain. And the neat thing with these 3 families is they all take down their prey. They all take down their food source a little bit differently, which allows us to figure out what kind of animal may have been responsible for some predation. Now, when we're talking about prey during today's episode, we're primarily going to be talking about the large animals. So we'll stay away from the livestock and the pets, but the natural prey of these 3 groups of animals are pretty much those animals we call ungulates. So we're talking about deer, elk, moose, bighorn sheep, sometimes even bison. Though what an ungulate is a hooved animal. And so they're these large herbivores, and this is primarily what these 3 groups of animals usually prey on. And so we're going to look at how they're able to secure their prey. Now, before we dive in, I do want to clarify some things where you can find these 3 groups of animals. So the first one we're going to spend a bunch of time talking about are going to be the canids, the wolves in this particular case. Now, I will say most of you are up in Canada. You guys are blessed with having a lot of wolves. I know some people will say you're cursed with having a lot of wolves, but I still say you're blessed with having a lot of wolves. So found primarily throughout most of Canada. Now, there are 3 distinct populations of wolves in the United States. There's that greater Yellowstone population, a population around the Western Great Lakes, and that little southern dot is what we call the Mexican gray wolves. Those are in Arizona and New Mexico. But you can see the range, a very northern species with the wolves. Now, when we're talking about bears, obviously, if you know anything about black bears, again, they're pretty much found throughout Canada and in most of the states, usually in pockets, usually more rugged areas in the mountains. But heck, New Jersey even has a big population of black bears. But there's another bear species we're going to mention today, and that's the brown bears or the grizzlies. And those are found primarily in Alaska and that northwestern portion of Canada. It does drop down, it follows the Rockies all the way down into that greater Yellowstone ecosystem. And then last but not least is the mountain lion, which is probably the least understood of all, especially when it comes to their range. Because mountain lions or cougars or whatever you want to call them, they're primarily a Western species now. Now, 500 years ago, they were found all throughout North America, all the way to the East Coast and throughout much of Canada. But these Eastern European settlers didn't like competing with things, and they wiped out most of the mountain lions throughout the eastern half of North America. Now, what you see there is the known breeding populations of mountain lions. We know for a fact that they are expanding their range. They're heading eastward. And so they're found throughout the Midwest, through lots of the southern parts of Canada. There's also a little population in Florida that has always been there. But a mountain lion in the Midwest is very, very common. And once in a blue moon, you get a crazy straggler that goes, we had one go all the way to Canada. We had one show up in Tennessee. So they're definitely trying to expand eastward. But for the most part, it's pretty much Mississippi River to the west and those southern and western portions of Canada for the mountain lions. Okay, before we get started here, I gotta set the mood for you. And so one of the things that I find whenever I'm teaching people about wildlife is you got to break things down into easier to understand ways. There's some complex theories and lots of things that you can get really, really technical. And I will be the first to admit a lot of wildlife biologists are too smart for their own britches, and they talk over people's heads. And they use jargon and fancy terms that a lot of folks can't understand. And so I try to break it down where it's so easy to understand. The light bulb goes off and you're like, oh, that makes total sense now. So I want you to close your eyes. I don't want you to close your eyes because you got to watch this, but I want you to imagine what we're going to be talking about here. We're going to be talking about how these apex predators take down their prey source. And so a prey source could be an elk, which it could be a moose, it could be a bison, but it's a pretty big animal for the most part. And so these elk could weigh 600-700 pounds. I believe that's about 300 kilograms. And so they can be very, very large animals that these predators are trying to eat. And so they got to take down this animal with pretty much the only or the main weapon they have, which is their mouth. So I tried finding the scariest looking mouth I could find, which is that. And obviously that is the teeth of some type of carnivore. You notice the big canines, and it looks pretty scary looking until you think about it. Because when we're talking about a mountain lion or a wolf or even a bear, that set of teeth is pretty darn small compared to that prey item. And that is their only weapon they have in order to try to kill and capture and eat that prey item. And so they really have to develop these specialized tactics to secure their food. Not only do they have to secure the food so they can survive, they can eat, and they can continue to live, but they have to design tactics that are going to reduce the likelihood of them getting injured. If they attack a prey animal, and these prey animals, like I said, could be very large animals, could easily do harm to the predator, whether or not it's a wolf or a bear or a mountain lion. A swift kick from a moose or an elk could easily kill one of those animals, could knock out some teeth. It could render it incapable of hunting ever again. And so the way they take down these animals has to be very precise, so as not to do them harm when they're trying to take down these animals. And so this whole talk, the takedown, how these predator animals take down their prey, is tremendously important for their own survival. A, because it secures the food that they need, and B, they got to do it in a way where they do not get injured. And so let's dive into those three types of animals we're going to talk about. Now, I mentioned the canids first. Now, most people know there are smaller canids out there. There's coyotes, there's foxes. We're not going to talk about those types of canids, typically because they feed on smaller prey items. They're going to catch a mouse or a woodchuck or some type of small critter and gulp it down in 1 or 2 bites in many situations. So there's not much to study there when you're talking about the takedown of those prey items. So we're going to focus our efforts on the larger canids. Now, when you're talking about the larger canids, there's one group everyone is going to know and we're going to focus on, and that's going to be the gray wolves, which I showed you their range. They're found throughout most of Canada and a couple of populations in the United States. For the most part, the gray wolf is primarily what we're going to be talking about. Now, I will tell you, there is another type of wolf that is almost, I hate to say it, but it's almost extinct. The red wolf is found in coastal North Carolina, but there's only about 20 left in the wild. They are really, really struggling right now. And so the wild canids that we're talking about are going to be gray wolves. There is another wild canid capable of killing, and that's this guy. Many of you know this as the domestic dog. And heck, you could look at the one dog that even looks like a wolf. And so you have to understand from the evolutionary standpoint, the domestication of gray wolves into domestic dogs only took place, I think, 20 or 30,000 years ago, which on that evolutionary time frame is just a blink of an eye. And so, believe it or not, folks, domestic dogs, especially the larger breeds, are very, very capable of taking down larger prey items, even livestock, when those domestic dogs go feral or they wild up. And so, although we're going to be talking primarily about gray wolves, the behavior that we're talking about can also be attributed to feral domestic dogs as well. So let's dive into the hunting strategy and the lifestyle of these canids. And so everyone knows, for the most part, that gray wolves, they often live in packs. Now, a lot of people have the misunderstanding that a pack of wolves might be 20 animals or so. For the most part, when we're talking about a wolf pack, most biologists, most agencies classify a wolf pack as you have to have at least 2 breeding adults. So a pack could consist of 2 animals. Typically, it's a few more than that. There's family members, there's the young, the offspring of those breeding adults, and occasionally there's a couple other subadults. But wolf packs can range from 2 all the way up to maybe close to 20, and the very, very largest. But for the most part, those will start breaking up. But you have to understand, wolves are very social. They live in packs. You also have to know that they are true carnivores. And what I mean by a true carnivore is it has to kill and eat meat in order to survive. So they actually go on the hunt. They have to go on the hunt to secure their food. So what type of technique do the canids employ? And so if you think of wolves, I think the best way to describe their hunting strategy is they are the marathon runners. Their lung capacity and ability to run and run and run is almost unrivaled. And so when you have a pack of wolves, whether it's 2 or 6 or 10, and they find a prey item, they're going to chase it. And their goal there, being a marathon runner, is they are going to run this animal to exhaustion. And so they keep chasing the animal. They don't want to confront the animal while the animal is fully aware and capable and strong. And so they continue to chase that animal to wear it down. And so a lot of these ungulates, they're really fast. They can run fast, but they can't run forever, or at least not as long as the wolves. And so before long, their prey item begins to tire out. They're literally completely exhausted. You see this elk trying to get refuge in the water. You can see this elk just gasping for breath as this pack of wolves just continuously chase it and chase it. Now, once that animal is exhausted, they're going to go in for the kill. And so what you have probably heard, and it's true, that when it comes to wolves or the canids, their bite delivery is they go for the posterior, the hind end. And so because they have multiple members on this attempt to take down a large prey source, oftentimes you have a couple of individuals occupying the front of the animal, the head of the animal, while the other animals go in and bite at the back end. And I hate to say it, but it's literally death by 1,000 cuts, or at least death by 1,000 bites, because they're continuously nipping and wounding the animal because they overwhelm them in numbers, and they can do these little bites and not really fully engage in an all-out battle where, like I said, that wolf could get injured. So before long, with all these little nips going at the back end, the animal eventually wears out, and they eventually can go in for the kill. And so that is typically how the wolves secure their prey item. And it's very, very successful. Now, the next group we're going to talk about is the felids, because it's going to be almost the complete opposite. Now, when we dive into the felids here, once again, we're not going to talk about the smaller felids. Here we have a bobcat here and a Canadian lynx. Once again, they typically feed on the smaller prey items. So they catch a mouse or a squirrel or even a rabbit, you're not going to see a big fight scene because they can pretty much kill that animal quickly and just carry it off to wherever. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the largest felid in North America, and primarily that is the mountain lion. Now, before anyone jumps in and says, oh, there's jaguars in the southernmost point of Arizona, that is true, but consider there's only one, or there might not be one every now and then. We're not even going to talk about jaguars. They're primarily Central America, South America, even though they do cross that American border in the very southernmost point. However, these animals here, the cougar, the mountain lion, they're found throughout a great portion of North America, primarily in the western half. And so that's what we're going to focus on as far as the takedown strategy. And so when we look at their hunting strategy, let's start with their lifestyle. Remember, wolves pretty much live a social life. They form these packs, so there's multiple adults and young in a pack. Cougars are completely opposite. For the most part, it is mostly a solitary existence. Now, I will tell you that occasionally you'll see a mountain lion with some young. Obviously, that is the female mountain lion. The male mountain lion doesn't take part in raising the cubs. So if you do see multiple or a group of mountain lions, it's typically the mom and her offspring. And I will tell you, those offspring can stay with the mom for about 1.5 years. And when that kitten or that cub is 1.5 years old, it could be fairly good size. So I've seen trail camera pictures where it looks like 4 adult mountain lions. Typically it's the mom, the adult, and 3 subadults, and they're pretty good size. But for the most part, those mountain lions will be breaking off on their own very soon, and primarily they lead this solitary existence. Now, once again, just like the wolf, they are a true carnivore. The mountain lion has to kill in order to live. So it eats meat in order to survive. And so what type of hunting technique do they employ? Well, I mentioned the wolf is that marathon runner. The mountain lion or the cougar is, consider them that 100-meter dash sprinter. They are the ambush attacker. They are not going to chase an animal for long, long distances. They're going to surprise an animal and overcome it in a quick burst. So a completely different kind of hunting tactic. And if you look at some photos of a cougar ready to pounce, they're pretty intimidating. They are literally in that starting block. Remember, like a 100-meter dash, they are getting ready to take off. And when they take off, they can get up to speed really, really quickly. So again, short burst, short distances. And before they know it, or before you know it, they're going at full speed. And within a short period of time, they're ready to pounce. Now, once again, they're unlike the wolves, which attack in a pack. This is just one animal attacking a much larger prey item. And so they have a special tactic in which they take that animal down. Before I tell you about that tactic, I do want to debunk one thing, because I said that mountain lions or cougars are some of the misunderstood animals. A lot of people think, especially in the East where we don't even have them, they believe that cougars hunt from trees. Like that's their tactic, is they climb a tree waiting for their prey to walk by. They rarely ever do this. If they've got to be mobile to get in position to surprise or ambush their prey. And so climbing a tree really puts them at a disadvantage. Having said that, if they're up in a tree for one reason or another and a prey item walks underneath, of course they could ambush it, but they do not climb trees as their hunting strategy. I'll save the coyote debunking for a different talk. That's another good one. But anyway, I just wanted to let everyone know that cougars don't hunt from trees. So that's a myth that is pretty rampant for a lot of folks out there. Okay, well, let's talk about the bite delivery. Remember, those wolves, lots of wolves. There's going to be a couple wolves distracting the front end of that prey item, and the others go in to the back end and begin delivering these slow but lethal bites to that prey item. The cat, however, is all by itself. And so remember, they only have one tool to take their prey item down. That's their mouth. And so they've got to deliver a killing blow as quickly as they can. And so cats, or these felids, what they do is they go for the head and neck. Again, they need a quick kill. So they either want to suffocate the animal as quickly as possible, and that's what you see in the picture there. And these cats, keep in mind, you could have 150, 180 pound or 100 kilogram cougar taking on a 300 kilogram elk, and they can take it down. They're putting themselves at tremendous risk because obviously that elk is really powerful. But if they get that elk in a good position where they can get their jaws either on the neck, or in many cases what they'll do, well, again, they're attacking that head area. But in many cases, especially with the smaller prey like mule deer or whitetail deer, they'll try to get to the base of the skull, even on back, because a quick bite there can either crush the vertebrae or crush the back of the skull and literally render that prey item immediately incapacitated. And so that's what they're trying. They don't want to get into a big fight. They want to end the fight as quickly as possible. And so going for the head and neck of these animals is their strategy. Again, they're solitary hunters, and they're trying to end the fight as quickly as possible. And I will tell you, they're quite good at it. They're some of the most lethal predators or hunters out there, and I give them the utmost respect. A lot of people think differently about them. I think it's a beautiful, amazing type of tactic that they use, which is very efficient. And so Mother Nature has a way of creating the perfect animal sometimes. So, all right, we covered the canids and the felids, the cats and the dogs. And now, lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about the ursids, and those are the bears. And so you have black bears, like I said, throughout most of North America, all throughout Canada. We also have brown bears or grizzly bears, mostly in the western half of North America. And they kind of do their takedown strategy very similar if they do it. Now, first and foremost, when it comes to hunting strategy, and you're looking at the lifestyle of these animals, bears are very much like the cougars, in which they mostly live a solitary existence. And once again, if you see multiple big bears together, usually it's the mom with her offspring, and those offspring will eventually break up from mom. But for the most part, adult males, adult females would live a solitary existence. Now, what makes bears a little bit different than those other two is, instead of being a true carnivore, bears are classified as an omnivore. So they don't have to eat meat. They like eating meat. Trust me, they like eating meat, but they eat a lot of vegetation too. And so hunting is not an everyday gotta do type of thing in order to get their food. Because face it, it's so much easier to run down a blueberry bush than it is a newborn elk calf. And so bears are quite happy eating a lot of vegetation. Now, having said that, if an opportunity presents itself, we say they're opportunistic omnivores, so they'll eat whatever they find. And so if they happen to stumble upon maybe a young elk calf or a deer or something that they could potentially catch, they will absolutely go after it. And so what technique do bears employ? So wolves are the marathon runners, cats are the sprinters. Bears, I guess the best way to describe them is they're the opportunistic barroom brawlers. And so what they do, they're usually big and burly and bulky. They try to overwhelm their prey item. Now, don't get me wrong, they are surprisingly fast, much faster than humans. But a lot of the larger animals, especially the larger adult ungulates, elk and moose, they can outrun bears for the most part, especially if they get some distance on them. But the bears are pretty adept at doing short bursts, and if they can catch their prey item, I don't like this picture because the bison was looking pretty rough there. I think the bear got it a little bit. But a bear, remember, it's opportunistic. If it sees a prey item that it can catch, it will go after it. And so if you look to see how they use their jaws, how they use that bite delivery to take down their prey, again, they're like that barroom brawler. They're just going to maul that animal, and they pretty much will bite that animal wherever they can get a hold of it. And because of that, remember, the bear's a pretty big animal too. So a lot of times they can get on 2 feet and get on the animal's back and try to overwhelm it. So they oftentimes deliver a lot of bites to the animal's back, could get up towards the head and neck region. But a lot of times the bear is just trying to wrestle the thing to the ground. And it could go on for a while, unfortunately, for that animal, but it's more or less because the bear is not a specialized hunter. They're this animal that's just trying to overwhelm another animal. And so bears will deliver a lot of bites, very similar to the wolf, in that they'll just keep biting until that animal goes down. But because of the sheer power of the bear, they can be very persistent. And yeah, they will just get on that animal and try to weigh it down. Now, I will say occasionally the ungulates do fight back, and they are able to take on some of the smaller black bears. It doesn't happen often, but it can happen. Now, I will tell you, of the three, the brown bear, the grizzly, is one that you don't even want to come close to a carcass, because they're very, very protective of whatever meat or whatever prey item they secure. So you got to be super mindful of coming across a bear, especially if there is a carcass there, or a grizzly or a brown bear, especially when they're on the carcass, because they do defend that carcass pretty much at all costs. Now, that pretty much summarizes those three animals. So let me do a quick review for everyone and talk about the takedown tactics and summarize everything I just said. So we got three classifications of animals. You got the wolves, you got the cats or the mountain lions, and you got the bears. So if you look at the attack strategy, remember, the wolves, they're the wear down. They're the marathon runner. They're going to run that animal until it collapses. The cougars, on the other hand, are these ambush predators. They are going to do it quickly. They're going to hide and then burst out at that animal with a quick sprint and hopefully get on that animal's neck or head and take that animal down as quickly as possible. And the bears, they're those barroom brawlers. They pretty much maul their prey item. So if you look at the bite location when they take down an animal, remember, the wolves are going at the hindquarters, that posterior end. Someone's playing a decoy towards the front of the animal. The other wolves in the pack are biting at the backside. Like I said, the cougar is going after that head or neck region to deliver that swift killing blow. And the bear, any way that he could get on top of that animal and begin delivering bites, oftentimes it's to the back or to the neck or even in the hind area of that animal, they'll bite wherever they can get it. Now, what about claw marks? I talked the whole time about these animals using their teeth. Understand that these three predators, their mouth is their main killing tool. Now, a couple of them have claws that they can definitely use. The wolf, for the most part, is not going to be using its claws. So you will rarely ever have claw marks on a prey item that's taken down by the canids. Now, the mountain lion, you will pretty much see some claw marks, especially if they're climbing on top of the head or neck region of an animal. Now, if you've ever seen mountain lion claws, they're extremely sharp and pointy. So usually it's these fine, sharp slices in the hide of the animal. Whereas the bear, especially those brown bears, those grizzlies, have really thick claws. They're not designed for taking animals down. They're more or less designed for digging, where black bear claws are designed for climbing, but they're usually a lot more blunt than, say, the mountain lion. And so you'll have a difference in the claw marks of those two animals. So if you were to look for claw marks on a prey item, remember, these animals, the cougar has 4 toes with claws on it. You're going to see they're not going to be perfectly parallel, but they're grabbing onto the animal, trying to hang on, and that animal is struggling. And so oftentimes their claws will rake down an animal, especially around that neck region where it's trying to grab on. One thing you will not see is just slices going in every direction. They're not using those claws as like a fighting tool. They're not boxing with that animal. I will tell you, we had an instance when I was working in Tennessee where a gentleman claimed he was attacked by a bear, and he said he had claw marks all over his arms and his face. And it was kind of sad to see, but he had scratches going in every single direction. Come to find out, he was lying about this whole bear situation. It was self-inflicted. But if you're seeing cross marks and everything, it's either barbed wire fence or something else doing those scratches, because the claw marks are pretty easy to identify on a carcass. So that's ruled out. Okay, well, what about tracks? Remember, we're trying to look at this kill scene to determine what predator took down an animal. And so oftentimes we can look for tracks. Obviously, a canine track, most people know what it looks like, 4 toes with that triangular main pad, almost always showing claw marks, whereas the cat track or the mountain lion track also has 4 toes. The main pad is not triangular. It almost forms this letter M, and rarely do you see the claw marks in a track. And then obviously there is the bear track, which has 5 toes, very oblong main pad, and oftentimes you can see claw marks. So if you could identify tracks in the sand, the biologists often use those to determine which animal took what down. Now, keep in mind, when it comes to the tracks, if the wolves are hunting in a pack, you're going to have tracks from multiple animals, usually. With a mountain lion kill, if you find tracks around the kill site, in almost every situation, it's going to be a single animal involved there. And then same thing with a bear. It's usually a single bear involved in that kill site. So the feeding pattern, this is a really cool, interesting topic, because these 3 animals all consume their prey in a different way. But guess what, folks? That will be part 2 of this Predator series, because I'm already going on 45 minutes and I want to stick around to make sure I can answer questions. So in summary, here's what's going on when we're talking about the takedown, how predators take down their prey items. Knowing the attack behavior is critical for being able to identify the potential predator in an attack scene. And it's real simple, because what you really need to do, there's not many animals out there that are going to take down a large ungulate. And so it's either going to come from the dogs, the cats, or the bears. So canid, felid, or ursid. So those are the 3 families you're focusing on. It's really best for you to narrow down the culprit by using evidence at the scene. So if you see a carcass that has all the bite marks around the head and neck, you can just use that to narrow it down. That is some type of cat. Same thing with the dogs, if they're at the hind quarter. Now, I will tell you, if you find a carcass with all the bite marks at the hind quarter, there's still some investigative work, because it could be the wolf, it could be a feral dog. So there's some more teasing apart that you have to do. And the other thing is, know your animal ranges. If you're living in Florida, you're not going to have a grizzly attacking anything or anything like that. So oftentimes in the eastern half of the US, lots of people are trying to blame cougars, but we're not finding cougars anywhere in the east. So as I always say with my wildlife group, Wildlife for You, your knowledge, when it comes to wildlife, your knowledge often means their existence. Could mean your existence as well, but the more you know about these animals, the more fun you will have going out and enjoying the beautiful Mother Nature. So I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to wrap it up. I do have to give photo credits because my slides are nothing without some wonderful photographers who I got the photos from. And so Kim mentioned it earlier. I do have a wildlife education program called Wildlife for You. One of the things we did, and that was the impetus for this Predator series, we did a podcast. I think we've got, 60 or 70 different podcasts about wildlife topics. Myself and Stephanie Payne, who I mentioned early on, we did that podcast. But you can find us on Facebook. Just look up Wildlife for You if you want to follow us. We post a lot of stuff. But here's my latest endeavor. I spent my early part of my career working with black bears over in Great Smoky Mountain National Park. And so I had a ton of bear stories and people kept saying, you need to write a book, you need to write a book. So guess what I did is I wrote a book. I actually have a real live book here that we will be giving away today. But it's about my misadventures of working with bears. I had lots of them, and I put it into a collection of stories and learning different lessons about not just bears, but life in general. So if you don't win the book, it's cheap. I think it's $9.99, but you can just Google it on Amazon. It's called Spooning a Bear. It's the only Spooning a Bear book on there, but you do paperback, Kindle, or even Audible. Don't listen to, if you like audiobooks, I narrated it because it just felt so weird having someone else tell my stories. So I ended up narrating it, and I can't stand my voice. So anyway, with that, I am done here. And like I said, when it comes to wildlife, remember, folks, your knowledge often means their existence. So with that, I will leave it on this slide and see if anyone out there has any questions. And Kim, I cannot see any comments or questions, so you'll have to read them off to me or just let the people ask with their microphone.
Absolutely. Well, Sarah is here and she's been going through all of that, and she's going to jump in and share some questions from the chat. So thank you so much. That was amazing, as always. I think everyone learns so much every time you speak, and we just love the way that you do it. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. I hope I didn't upset anyone. It's hard talking about predator tactics without it's not a pleasant thing to think about, but it's something that occurs in nature. And so it's completely natural. And like I said, it's not wrong. It's sometimes a little difficult to see, though.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, for sure. I think it reiterates a lot of things, I think, for people too. Things like, like, wow, I really should keep my dog on a leash. I really don't want my dog to have to go through an experience like getting killed by a wolf or a cougar or a bear, for sure. Yeah. And, watching your kids and just for your own safety too. I mean, even though these incidents don't occur that often with people, it is a reminder that this is nature, and nature, it's about survival of the fittest. And unfortunately, it can seem quite cruel at times, but they got to make it out there somehow.
Yep.
All right, let's do some questions.
Thank you.
Daryl, have you heard anything about predatory black bears that stalk prey the same way that cats do, or a similar way that cats do?
Yeah.
Do you have any information on that?
Yeah, I teach about that all the time. Now, when it comes to black bears, they're much more timid than brown bear. A lot of that has to do with the biology, because a brown bear or a grizzly can be much larger than a human. Black bears in general, even adult black bears, sometimes aren't that much bigger than humans. Like a female black bear might weigh 200 pounds or however many kilograms. I can't convert my kilograms too quickly. But they're about the same size as adult humans. So they're a lot more likely to run away from us. And so people don't pay that much attention to black bears, but you should, because black bears can be a very formidable opponent. Now, when you look at black bear attacks, the vast majority of situations, a lot of times it's a defensive reaction because you got too close to the cubs or a food source or anything. But what they found out, Dr. Stephen Herrero obviously is the godfather when it comes to bear attacks. The most dangerous situation when it comes to black bears is what we call a predatory attack. Now, when I talk about a black bear acting offensively. That means instead of trying to run away from you, they're trying to get closer to you when they're acting on the offense. And what they're trying to do is secure some type of food reward. Now, in most situations, when a black bear is approaching you, it might smell something. It might smell a sandwich, it might smell lotion on. It smells something that it's just trying to figure out if there's a food reward. Those you act large, you act tough, you try to scare that bear away. But the most dangerous situation when it comes to black bears is when they see you as the food source, the human as the end result. And that's what we call a predatory attack. They're going after the human to eat the human. It's very, very, very rare. But in those situations, they absolutely act like a predator. Their head will be low to the ground. They're very sneaky. They don't vocalize at all. They're just trying to get closer and trying to find a point in which they can take on that human. And so they have very predator-like behaviors. And so, again, it's a very dangerous situation. You have to be able to recognize that, but that's where you try to scare that bear away because playing dead is the last thing you want to do in that situation.
Awesome. Thank you, Daryl. What distance can cougars attack from, or like typically how far?
Usually they obviously want to get as close as possible. So a lot of times, oh my gosh, I could ramble forever. A lot of times, like when a cougar is made aware of a prey item, especially if the prey item is walking closer, they will lay in wait and ambush to see how close that prey item will get. And obviously the closer, the better. You will hear lots of stories about people saying they were stalked by a cougar, and it's somewhat true. What is typically going on, not in every case, but what is typically going on is the cougar recognizes some type of food might be coming towards them. And because they are true carnivores, they automatically switch into that hunting mode, that cat-like predator mode, and immediately go in the crouch and try to figure, is this my next meal that's coming towards me? And if it's a hiker or a couple hikers coming down the trail, they might see a cat looking like it's stalking them. And it's the cat trying to figure out, is this something I can eat? I will tell you, when it comes to cougars, a lot of these predators, the best defense is the human voice. Yell at it, talk to it, because as soon as it recognizes a human, it usually triggers, oh, wrong prey item. And so I've seen videos where people like will see a cougar and kind of sneak away being really quiet. And it's like, you're acting like the prey. But a cougar will, they want to close the distance. Can they overcome a deer at 50 meters? Absolutely. It all depends on how quickly that prey item notices the cougar and begins to run. Now, there's lots of situations. In fact, I just watched one this morning where it was a cougar was going after a deer, and the deer got enough of a head start, it outran the cougar. And so as close as they could get, but within 50 meters, the cougar does stand a good chance at capturing the prey item if it's unaware.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sorry, there is lots of questions, guys, but we probably won't have time to get to all of them. But here's an interesting one. If there are a bunch of goats killed with bites in the jugular, does it sound more like a mountain lion or bear that would kill it?
There's this thing called surplus killing, where wolves have been known to do it. They're probably the biggest culprit of it, where they kill more animals than they need. But that people classify that as they kill indiscriminately because they like killing. Understand, that's an evolutionary trait. A lot of times, if there's a herd of animals that get stuck in the snow, if that pack of wolves or or a lion can kill multiple animals, they secured their food for the next month, especially if it's in the wintertime. And so it's not like those animals are going to go to waste. They're not doing it because they don't like those animals. They're doing it to survive. Now, if the animals are bitten in the jugular, it's probably more of a feline attack. Cougars, I shouldn't say they're not known. They have been known to kill multiple animals. It's quite rare. Usually a cougar will go after its one prey item and be happy with that. But oftentimes when you have a penned situation with livestock, so the other animals cannot run, it becomes so much of a temptation for that mountain lion or the cougar to get more animals if they're right there and at hand. So jugular bites usually lean more towards the cats.
Okay. Awesome. Well, we do have some prizes to give away, so I think we should switch gears. But is there a place that people might be able to ask you some questions if we didn't get to it?
Absolutely. In fact, I will type it in. I'll give you my wildlife address if I could figure out how to. I will. I'm typing it in now. I figured it out.
Okay, perfect. So Kim, maybe you could start with telling everybody what we're giving away tonight.
Absolutely. I'm wandering around looking for my scat belt. Give me 1 second. I think it's right here. And Daryl doesn't have one, so we're sending him one in the mail, which is awesome. Yes. And so needed. So these are holsters for your bear spray. And the idea is that when you are out for a hike or a run or just a walk with your dog, it's a great option because not only like does it make it accessible, but it's also something you can put over top of a jacket if you're not wearing pants that have belt loops. I also like if you're, let's say you're traveling on a quad, you can put across your chest, or if you're out fishing or fly fishing. So there's lots of ways to wear it. So I always try to explain to people the importance of figure out the way that is most comfortable for you to wear bear spray and for it to be very, very easily accessible. Do not put it in your backpack. Do not put it on your bicycle. Do not put it on a water bottle holder. If you get knocked off of your bike or if you get knocked over and your bear spray falls out, you're not going to get it out in time. So you want to have it somewhere where it's secure, but also very easily accessible. So Scat Belt is one of our sponsors, and they donate these belts every single time we have a talk, which we so appreciate. So there's hundreds of these things getting donated, and I can't thank them enough. You can go to scatbelt.com to purchase one, and you can use the coupon code RecSafe or Kim, and you'll get 15% off. And some of those proceeds will then go back to us, which we can then, of course, use to keep our website going and keep our Zoom going. So we really appreciate it. But Sarah, who is the winner of the belt?
All right, so the winner of the Scat Belt tonight is Stephen Cull. Congratulations, Stephen.
Congratulations.
Just so everybody knows, the Scat Belt coupon code will be in a thank you email that I'm going to be sending tomorrow. So if you didn't quite catch it, I'll send that to you guys. And the winners of tonight's prizes, I will also contact you, so you don't need to contact us. So the next thing we want to give away is Daryl's book, Spooning a Bear. Daryl, do you want to tell? Oh, you already told us about your book. Sorry. So the winner of that is Gabby Farkas. So congratulations, Gabby.
I think you'll enjoy it. It's just so you know, it's family friendly. It's super easy reading. Most people write back and they're like, you need to write another book because I finished it in one day. So
awesome.
I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. Yeah, so congrats, Gabby, on winning the book. I will email you as well. And we were also going to give away a pack of Blist wool. Do you want to explain what that is, Kim?
Sure. So my friend Christine, years ago, when I met her, she had the worst feet for hiking, and she was always getting horrible blisters. And she finally found some wool and started shoving wool down her shoes, her hiking boots, and it worked. And so she decided to find a source for wool, and created a company called Bliss Wool to help people who are out hiking to have an option not to have gross sore feet like her. So, and I highly recommend you put it in your first aid kit, especially, of course, when you're also traveling with children, because children always get kind of uncomfortable in their shoes sometimes, and you can just give them an option, because we all know that Band-Aids are going to fall off. So this is an incredible product. You go to blisswool.com to check out their stuff too, and they also provide a 15% off coupon, and I think it's RecSafe with the coupon for that too. So, all right, who's the winner?
All right, so the winner for that is Connie Hazenberg. Connie Hazenberg. So congrats, Connie, on winning the Bliss Wool. And by the way, that coupon code will also be in the thank you email that I will send out tomorrow. And last, oh, sorry, Daryl.
No, you do your last giveaway if you got another giveaway.
Okay, yeah, just one more thing. We have bear safety classes that we offer through RecSafe with Wildlife. They're online and you can take them whenever you want. And they teach you about bear behavior and what to do in the different types of bear encounters, predatory versus defensive, what Daryl kind of mentioned. And you're all getting a 20% off coupon code to take our classes, which will be in your thank you email. But we do have a winner tonight for a bear safety class. So the winner for that is Caleb Costrini. Caleb Costrini. Awesome. That's it for me.
If I could chime in, Kim, I was just thinking about, I know there's a whole bunch of people that had questions or wrote questions that we didn't get to. I think what I would prefer, what I will do is, if you can visit the Wildlife for You Facebook page, I will do a post about today's class. And if you could post your question in the comments, and then I will respond in the comments. The reason I'd like to do that is because then everyone would have access to that question and answer. So we can make it visible to everyone via the Wildlife for You Facebook page.
Yeah, that's an awesome idea. Okay, and I can also include the link to your Facebook page in the email to everybody as well, so that people can find you.
And I'll make sure to answer every question that gets asked.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right.
There's going to be a lot of them, Daryl.
Right. Wait until part 2, when instead of the takedown, we talk about the meal.
Oh, that is, my favorite is the way cougars eat. So I am very excited for that. Although it is a little graphic, but fun.
Yeah, I will keep it as palatable as we possibly could.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for your time tonight. And this is recorded, so it will end up in your email tomorrow. You'll see a link there, so please share it. Tell your friends about these opportunities to come to these talks, and we will work with Daryl to get part 2 going in either June or July when he's available, and we'll let you know when that is. And we're super excited for part 2 as well. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you all have a wonderful night and learn as much as you can about these amazing animals for your safety and theirs. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.